for the last many, many decades, trade has been conducted using the dollar as the unit of intermediation, right? Whether commodities, the currency that underpin commodities has always been dollars. So when you buy oil's traded in dollars, whether it's in Saudi Arabia or whether it's in the UAE or whether it's in Indonesia. It's a dollar system. And so the BRICS are saying, why should we have to transit the US dollar to trade soybeans from Brazil to China? Isn't there a way that we can do this internally? They're not going to create a currency, a BRICS currency, but they're trying to figure out how they square away the plumbing, the financial plumbing, so that they don't have to go through the dollar as the intermediary. So that's what's going on.
How does that affect us?
Well, if the dollar isn't the reserve currency, we're screwed. Like, we become, I don't know, Argentina. It can be very bad. So let's back up. I'll begin with our fiscal deficits, and I'll take this back to why the dollar is important.
Okay.
So right now, we spend $7 trillion. That's the latest budget proposal. And we generate in tax revenue like $4.9 trillion, right? So there's a deficit of, roughly $2 trillion a year. Now, people don't understand unless you can make it real for them. So let's take out a bunch of zeros. Let's assume you as an individual are making $49,000 a year and you're spending $70,000 a year. Well, okay, that's bad. Mm-hmm. That's fiscally irresponsible, but that's what we're doing as a country. If it's you as an individual in that scenario where you're like $20,000 short every year, what do? Well, you max out your credit card 1 year. Okay, that covers you the first year. The second year, you take out a loan from the bank to pay maybe your credit card or whatnot. But over time, that's not sustainable. So what happens is when we have a shortfall, the way we generate revenue in shortfalls, other than tax revenue, right? Tax revenues are 4.9 trillion. How do you get to 7? Well, we issue bonds, right? So we sell bonds around the world, and when people don't buy, for whatever reason, the Fed buys the bonds. The Fed is the buyer of last resort. So you've seen the Fed balance sheet basically go from like 4 trillion to like 8 trillion because they're the ones buying everything. Well, how are they buying it? Well, they buy it by printing money. And so the printing presses have been off the charts, certainly since COVID and throughout this administration. And that, of course, has caused inflation and a lot of other problems, which we can go into. Now, the artificial demand for dollars around the world is largely due to the fact that 60% of central banks have the dollar sitting in reserves, okay? And also because the dollar is used as the unit of trade for commodities, for foreign exchange. Like if you want to go from Colombian pesos to, Indonesian rupiah, you have to go through the dollar. Mm-hmm. If the dollar isn't there, because nobody wants to use the dollar, we're screwed. All that artificial demand for dollars disappears, and we crater. We're not going to forget financing the next aircraft carrier. We're not going to be able to pay Medicare. And that's when things get really, really bad. And it just takes leadership in our government, in our Congress, and in our executive branch to say, enough. We can't fund everything. And there are things that, look, we have 88 million people on Medicare, 65 million people on Medicaid, 8 million on disability, 44 million on food stamps. That's like, I don't know, I'm not good at doing math in my head, but that's like a little over 200 million people in America that depend on the government. That's not sustainable.
There's only what, 350 million?
340 million, something like that, 336. So so we have to do something to really rein in our spending. And we're adding $1 trillion of debt every 100 days. And so
who do we owe the debt to?
Mainly ourselves. We do have a bunch of foreign debt buyers. China had at some point, close to, maybe $1.5 trillion or $2 trillion, and they've been paring that down. They've been selling. Why? Because they don't want to get sanctioned. They learned from Russia. Once Russia invaded Ukraine, we basically sanctioned everything. We took all their money and we're like, okay, it's ours. So when you have a central bank that has dollars in reserves, it's not like there are bales and bales of money sitting in the Russian central bank in a dungeon. It's sitting at the Fed. And so we can like turn the money off whenever we want. And so China was like, I don't know that I like this. So I think I'm going to start selling treasuries. So it's a problem. And the debt is a problem for many reasons. We're always issuing new debt, and there's debt that gets paid back. And as we start paying back some of these shorter duration loans and bonds and government obligations, we have to borrow at a new rate. And that new rate is really high. And so, I mean, the 3-month, I think, is like 5% and change. It used to be 0. And so now we're borrowing money at higher interest rates, which means we have to pay, our government is paying more in interest on our debt, like over $1 trillion in interest alone. And we're paying $850 billion for our Defense Department. We're paying more in interest, just in interest to service the debt, than we are paying for the Defense Department. You tell me, is that sustainable? We're screwed unless somebody changes things in a very radical way. And in DC, nobody seems to care.
So the people that own the debt are
the Fed,
bonds. The people buy bonds.
Yes, the notes and the bonds. There's an entire marketplace. Some are owned by big financial firms. Your 401k probably has a bunch of government bonds in it. So it's owned by ourselves individually through our 401ks. It's owned by large corporations like BlackRock and Vanguard and so forth, Goldman Sachs. It's owned by the Fed. It's owned by institutional buyers, foreign buyers like the Saudis and the Japanese. It's owned by a lot of people.
And can they call and collect?
So the way a bond works is I owe you $100. I'll pay you back in 5 years with interest. I'll pay you 5% interest a year, and then in 5 years, I pay you the principal. So they do come to collect once the bond is due.
And that's what the foreign countries are doing as well.
Yeah, I mean, well,
they're buying so it's all bonds. It is all.
So you have many types of government obligations. You've got a 3-month, you've got a 6-month, you've got a 10-year, a 5-year. So there are lots of bond durations. And there's a giant marketplace for this. People are buying and selling these bonds all the time. It's not like that IOU that you just purchased from me, like I owe you $100, I'll pay back in 5 years. You can take that IOU and sell it to your sister. And your sister can sell it. And then there becomes a secondary market for these. And there's like a giant marketplace of people buying and selling bonds.
Okay. So what does it look like when we default?
I don't want to be around when that happens. I'll be in a Mennonite colony in Paraguay, living off the land or something. No, but joking aside, it can get very bad very quickly.
Can you paint a scenario?
Sure. A scenario where it can happen very quickly, and it can happen over a long period of time. Over a long period of time, people start losing faith in the dollar. Our obligations become less and less valuable to them. Faith and credit in the U.S. dollar becomes impaired. The dollar loses a tremendous amount of value. It depreciates significantly compared to a lot of other places. We see huge amounts of inflation. Perhaps hyperinflation, or it can happen very suddenly, where we just can't meet the obligations of the federal government. So, we have $7 trillion that we need to pay out every year in whatever, right? And maybe we have to fire people. We have to fire the 24 million government workers. By the way, there are twice the number of government employees than there are manufacturing employees.
Man. That's
12 million versus 24 million. So
when you told me that last night, that blew my mind.
maybe we have to fire people. Maybe people have to take a haircut on their what they think that they're due. Maybe we can't afford a lot of the social programs, some of which are very important to people in poor communities. And these people in poor communities are saying, well, that was my lifeblood. Like now I can't buy food. And people get really pissed off.
I mean, maybe if we just quit funding Ukraine.
Yeah, I don't follow the Ukraine Russia as much as I do China, but I don't understand how cooler heads can't prevail and get us to some peaceful outcome. At this point, it's probably too late, but I have hope that future leaders in the United States will take an important role in getting these two sides to the table and saying, let's figure out a way to end this. It's in everybody's best interest to end this thing. And I think Putin is obviously indefensible. But I just don't know what the strategy is. If you were to sit down and talk to anybody in Washington and say, what's our desired end state? Do we want regime change in Russia? Is that the desired end state? No, we can't do that. Well, is it to preserve the territorial integrity of Ukraine? Okay, yeah, I can buy that. But how do we do this? So I'm a first principles thinker. What is your desired end state? And let's go back and get there. But I'm not quite sure what we're trying to do. Maybe because I'm not in the know. And again, I'll caveat this with, I'm not following the Russia-Ukraine issue as much as I'm following the China issue.
Well, I mean, I'm asking you because of what you're a part of now with the venture capital firm and defense stuff. And so could it be that it is the military industrial complex companies, Lockheed Martin?
So is Lockheed and, are they pulling the strings behind Ukraine? I don't know.
Yeah, what I'm asking is, are they lobbying Washington to vote this in so that they can send their weapons over to Ukraine?
I'm not really in the know on those discussions. I really couldn't tell you.
Okay.
What I'm more concerned about is that we're pretty much out of javelins. We're pretty much out of 155 rounds. We're out of a lot of stuff. Our arsenals are getting depleted. And if there's ever a real shooting war over in Asia, what are we going to do? That's my bigger concern. And so I think that we need to start rearming ourselves very quickly because something is going to go down in Asia when we least expect it, and we're not going to be prepared.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in things that are seemingly nonsensical that are super important. I'll give you an illustration. A few days ago, China restricted sales of a metal known as antimony to the West. Both China and Russia together, they comprise probably like 85% of the world antimony market. Why is antimony important? Because we need it to make bullets. Without antimony, we don't have bullets. We don't have ammo, right? Because they mix it with lead and whatever. So a bullet is made of a bunch of different metals that are forged together. It's an alloy. And antimony forms an integral part of that. China's like, oh, guess what? No more antimony for you guys. So I ask you, how are we going to make bullets? What's the plan? And it's something as esoteric and like stupid as a minor metal, but that minor metal is super important to everything else. China restricted gallium and germanium 6 months ago, and those are crucial ingredients to make semiconductors. And China says, well, sorry guys, they're not leaving. So gallium and germanium prices, exploded. And so these are things that, are seemingly irrelevant, but in their totality, they're super important. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. It's looking pretty grim.
There's hope, man. We're America.
Yeah.
And I think with like I said before, with good leadership, with humility, and I think a return to our roots. Look, I'm a man of faith. I don't wear it on my sleeve or anything, but I think that it would be good for the United States, many of us at a ground level, not the government, to return to our Judeo-Christian roots, especially when things are on fire. It's like the story of the pilot who was flying into the landing strip, a commercial pilot, and his rudder stopped working, and so he called the flight deck and the tower and said, "Oh my God, my rudder is flailing." And he was told by the tower, "Okay, listen, here's how you fix it. You've got to do this, that, and the other, and press these buttons, and just repeat after me. Flaps, check. Engines, check. Rudder, check. Okay, good." And he kept going down the approach, and all of a sudden his left engine caught on fire, and he calls the tower again and says, "Oh my gosh, what do I do? The engine's on fire." And they went through the same rigmarole, and the buttons, and turn off the fuel and repeat after me. Flaps, check. Right engine, checked. Rudder, check. Okay, good. A few seconds later, the other engine's on fire, and the tower says, "Okay, repeat after me. Our Father, who art in heaven." So it's a joke, but I mean, I think that when we're in a difficult situation, I think the best thing we can do is to pray, get back to our value system, and just brush the dust off and get back on our feet. We will prevail.
No matter where you're watching the Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this at all, anything, please like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, head to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave us a review.